Most brands don't lose money because their ads stop working. They lose because their creative systems break. And today we're unpacking how elite creative teams actually operate, while diversity directly impacts performance, and how UGC becomes a strategic growth lever and not just another asset in the ad account. Welcome to Beyond the Cart. I'm excited. Today's episode, we have special guest, Adam Frogley. Adam, welcome to the show. I'm excited to have you here, and just jumping in and hopping into a really cool topic. Like, creative drives everything that you do in paid ads in today's just advertising landscape. And so you're a proven expert in this space, and I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Well, I just want to hear a little bit background wise. So tell the audience a little bit about how you kind of got started in this space, and your background and kind of what you're up to now.
Yeah, sure. I started as a designer. Initially, I out of college was getting into design for a company that was a franchising company. Did graphic design, did motion design, did video design, just created assets, all sorts of marketing assets. And a few years into my career, I was able to turn that into, oh, there's data behind this design, not just a creative director saying, yes, I like that, or no, I don't like that, but we can run these ads on paid social, and suddenly you have millions of people telling you that was a good design or that wasn't a good design. And so I've since then, I dove deep into paid social creative. I've become a creative director for many big national brands, spending millions of dollars a month on paid social, Meta, YouTube, even recently TikTok and AppLovin. But yeah, that's kind of how I got my start. Started as a designer and then dove deep into the data side, where I could look at the metrics, look at the numbers. Oh my goodness, look at all this revenue I'm actually driving with the creative that I made. And then why does that actually drive the revenue, and connecting the data to the creative. And that's kind of where my career has taken off. And also I dove deep in there, and I have a passion for it now.
Oh, I love that. That's awesome. Well, that provides a lot of context too, because one of the questions I had around sort of creative teams, right, and how they operate and what drives them is, how do, in your experience, high performing creative teams, how are they structured? Right. Like, so that's one of the things that I, have conversations with clients. Like, well, what does your creative team look like? Do you have one? If not, how do we get you one?
Yeah.
That's an important talking point. So how do you see them being structured to be most effective?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard because it depends on the size of your company.
Sure.
So, a small company, you're going to have someone who's going to wear multiple hats. And I've been that person before, where that person is writing scripts, that person is filming content, that person is editing, that person is doing all the research. But as you grow, and if you're a mid-level, or even a company that can scale up to millions of dollars of spend each month, you're going to want to make sure you systematize your processes. And even at that one person, wear all the hats, you still want a system. So you're going to have, I would say, someone at least that can do all those things I just listed, someone that can research, someone that can write the scripts, someone that can do the design and the editing. And then of course you're going to want the talent, the on-film, on-camera talent, someone that can be there for in front of the camera for you. So as far as how a structure can be built, it's going to depend on the size, but I would say make sure that everybody has a job. They know what that job is, or multiple jobs, what those jobs are, so that the workflow is seamless. I think one of the lessons that I learned early on in my career, especially in the direct response marketing world, was the small things that are quick and kind of busy work should not be the things that your highest paid, highest talent revenue driving employees should be doing. So if you can outsource those to someone who's just getting their start, a college intern, or someone who can do it for much less expensive, you're going to make your team go a lot farther because they're not going to be, your high performing, high revenue driving people are not going to be spending all of their time just working on busy work, little things that anybody could be doing. You want to have those people be doing the revenue driving work.
100%. I think that's so good. Where do you think, um, sort of like the argument around in-house versus hybrid versus agency? You've kind of lived both of those worlds. Like, what do you see work the best?
Yeah, it's a great question. I am a big fan of the hybrid model, because I think that each of those have their own advantages. I mean, in-house, an agency is great, but to have somebody in-house that can really dive deep, that can know the brand, that can know what worked, multiple years ago, or what the persona that you go after, if they can know them off the top of their head without having to do research, they can
Yeah.
really know your audience. There's a lot of value there. And I've been that person where you're working for the same company for multiple years, and you know the brand really well. You can list off the brand hex colors off the top of your brain. You really
Right.
know the brand, the do's and don'ts. You can really go fast in that. All of those things become second nature. You have all of the things, the must do's memorized and the don't do's memorized.
Sure.
Um, and you have kind of a steward of your brand, but
Mhm.
also someone that can drive performance in that way. I think that's important to have. If you can afford it, I think it's also a really important thing to bring in an agency model,
Yeah.
because agencies usually are going to take the bigger swings. You brought
Sure.
them in because you need a big swing, right? And
Yeah.
usually the biggest growth that I've seen in most clients that I've worked with is shortly after, not right after, but shortly after they bring in an agency, because the agency has taken a big swing and they've connected. They've hit a home run somewhere, and
Mhm.
because of that, then the in-house team can work with that and ride that momentum for a while. And so yeah, I like the hybrid model because of the advantages of both. Um, and it's a
Yeah.
lot of fun to be on both sides. I've been on both sides, and there's as much as it's kind of crazy to be working in an agency and it's a little bit faster paced and whatnot, it's also fun because you can take the big swings. And sometimes the legal team in the brand says, no, don't do that.
Right.
Anyone
Right.
who's worked
Right.
with me, it's like, yep, sometimes you're that guy. You push those limits, and that's okay,
Right.
because
Right. Right.
you find one that does connect, and you get, I've had multiple clients that are like, yeah, you made an ad that was 4 years ago and or 3 years ago, and it's still running on paid social because it's still profitable for us.
That's
So
amazing.
that's always fun to do, to be able to take those big swings and see where it goes.
Oh, I love it. Well, I think no matter if you're using in-house, agency, hybrid, systems really are one of the key drivers, right? What
Yeah.
does a mature creative workflow look like from brief to concept to production, deployment, and then the feedback loop required to kind of determine if it's working or not? Where do you kind of see that being a mature process, and what does it look like for you?
Yeah, I think each of those things you just listed typically are going to have somebody that is the owner of them. It doesn't always
Mm,
mean that they're doing every job, but there's somebody that is the owner of that. Knowing, especially that person should know the brand, or have, at least if they're part of an agency, have studied up on the brand really well,
sure.
have done their research, know the competitors, know the do's and don'ts. And then when you have a copywriter, then write the copy and send it over, or the creative strategist. Even, I mean, that's kind
Hmm.
of a newer-ish role. I wouldn't say new
Hmm.
anymore, but to have someone who is just coming up with the ideas and then sending them over to the copywriter. The copywriter executes the idea and then sends it off, or writes the script, sends it off to the talent to film. The talent films it. That then gets sent to the editors. The editors hopefully are trained in direct response editing, and they put together
Hmm.
a ready to go ad.
That's awesome. Well, you mentioned sort of the creative strategist role. That is not brand new, but
No,
relatively
yeah.
new in this space, right? And where do you think the alignment is important between like the creative strategist and maybe the media buyer, performance operator within that system?
I think that is the most overlooked relationship in all of paid social teams. The relationship between the media buyer and, you can call it a creative strategist, or even just like the creative director that's over the team. I
Mm,
know that there's two different roles between creative strategist and creative director, but I've been both of those roles, and I think that there's a lot of overlap. Um, but I would say a lot of creative teams, what they kind of struggle with or miss is oftentimes I've gotten into working with a client and they'll say, our media buyers just really don't like our creative team, or our creative team really, they fight with our media buyers all the time. And if you can figure that relationship out, it is a huge, huge unlock, because the media buyers are sitting on the data all day long. Just like we talked about, you want to know the brand like the back of your hand, or you want to know, the competitors. The media buyers know the data because they're looking at it every day, all day long. And so being able to communicate between especially the creative strategist and the media buyer and speak the same language, I think is really important. I think every creative strategist or creative director that's working on a paid social team really needs to, if they haven't already, study the language of media buyers, the data that corresponds directly to their product or their service, so that when their media buyer comes back to them and says, the CPL is up or CPMs are up, and we, this ad, cut our whatever metric in half, you go, oh, I know exactly what that means, and I know why. So, and then on the flip side, I've also had some of the media buyers that I work with give some of the best creative suggestions that have then taken ads to another level. Most media buyers, because of their place in their job, they're looking at creative all day long too. Even though they're may not be the ones coming up with the ideas or generating it, they know what creative has been working. They know what the top ad in the account is, and they probably know what their competitors are doing too, and they probably know why. And so even if they don't consider themselves a creative person, I would say making sure that the language is being spoken and we're taking input from both the media buyer and the creative strategist into new ads. I think there's tons and tons of value there that a lot of brands leave on the table.
Yeah. Where do you think most brands break that handoff? Where does that handoff break down typically in your experience?
Yeah, I think it's in the handoff of creative to the media buyer. I have worked with media buyers where they just think they get the creative and they run it, and that's their job. And for a long time, that was the job of the media buyer, right? But the media buyers that I have some amazing media buyers that I've worked with throughout my career. The ones that really excel are the ones that are involved in all of the processes, but they do their specific job very well. So I think when the creative gets handed off to the media buyers, I don't think that there's a problem with the media buyer saying, hey, this would be even better if we changed it a little bit in this way. Or even in one thing is the creative team sometimes then goes, I can't ever get any creative through because the media buyer is changing it. There is a line there.
No, sure.
Maybe, and probably the better practice for the media buyer would be, this is great, but for the next round, let's try this. Right.
Yeah.
That way the work that's been done doesn't feel like, we're in an endless circle, because creative velocity and how quickly you can get creative out there is a really big deal. So instead of holding it up, go run it, but give those suggestions and say, hey, for the next batch, let's do this.
Yeah, that's good. It's almost like you need to have the emotional intelligence to manage that relationship as well, for sure.
Absolutely.
That's good. What KPIs should creative teams actually care about? It's like, I know media buyers are concerned, currently with their CPLs and their CPCs and their CPAs. Should creative teams be thinking about KPIs?
Yes, 100%. But I can't give you a blanket statement as to which ones, because that's going to, again, come from that relationship between the media buyer and the creative team. I've worked early on in my career, and I thought, for one company for a while, doing this and doing it very well, scaling them to lots and lots of money every month. But and when I did that, I went, oh man, I know exactly what, this hook is going to correlate to this KPI, and this body or this problem solution statement correlates to this KPI. And that's what we should be training on. And for that team, that was absolutely correct. But when I then started working in an agency world and I had 5 different clients, I then went, oh man, that KPI doesn't correlate to that anymore. So it's going to depend from company to company, and it's going to depend from, product to product, what KPI, because, if you're selling a pair of fingernail clippers versus if you're selling, financial services, it's going to be a very different customer process to get from, I saw an ad to I'm giving you money. Right.
Yeah.
And so I think there's I can't give a blanket statement because of that, but as a whole, I mean, if you're looking for something big, did the ad make you money or did it not? Right.
Yeah.
Whatever, if that's a ROAS KPI, if you want to pay attention to that, great. Or if that's a CPA, that's another, those are kind of some of the more like overarching ones. Great. But I don't think it's kind of surface level. So like you do want to know at least 2 or 3 more KPIs that are down along the sales funnel.
Sure.
But that's going to depend from company to company or service or product.
Yeah, for sure. Because you think about it at the top of the funnel, right? Like you might have an amazing hook rate or scroll stop rate, but if those creatives never actually translate to revenue or lead generation, but they're very compelling or entertaining or engaging, you have to strike that balance, right? Like there is like you mentioned, the entire funnel to think through and then identifying which one matters the most.
Yeah, early on, well, a few years ago, I was working I was doing a bunch of work for a fitness company, and this specific fitness company, humor worked really well for them. Also, kind of some more of those, like, I don't know, satisfying visuals is the right way to put it, but things that will catch attention, kind of your old school direct response, where it's like, oh, you stop the scroll real quick, and then like that sort of stuff worked for them, and they made sales off of that. And then when I went from working for them to a financial services company, I tried some of those, and my media buyer was like, these have a great hook rate, but they're costing us a lot of money because that's all that happens. They get hooked on from whatever, funny thing or satisfying visual that pops up. But then once they get into the, the landing page of, let's talk about your finances, like, people are going to, take a step back and be like, wait, I just clicked on like a funny ad.
This was funny. Why are you selling me insurance?
Exactly. That kind of a thing. So there's definitely, you have to find a balance.
For sure. What, where do brands sort of maybe sabotage their creative performance at an operational level? You think about approval cycles or bottlenecks or testing roadmaps or any of that kind of stuff. Like where you kind of see that sort of operationally break down?
What has been the thorn in my side through my career? That's the question.
Exactly. Exactly. What has annoyed you the most about your job historically?
I would say along the process, there are a few things where brands make a lot of mistakes. One I already mentioned, which is like the relationship between the media buyer and the creative team. Keeping those two departments siloed is a huge mistake. You definitely need to have a good relationship and a lot of communication between the media buyer and the creative teams. Another one that I would say is a struggle a lot is an age-old argument that you'll probably, if you go on LinkedIn and search this, you'll see all sorts of arguments between, what works versus what's brand right? Does it look beautiful? Does it look branded? Versus, the ugly ads, quote unquote.
Sure.
And I think leaning too hard into one of those or the other is also a mistake. If all you're going to do is lean into the, crazy looking, eye-catching, gross visuals or satisfying visuals, and that's your entire, that eventually, like if that's how you're making money, great. You're going to make some quick money probably. But then you're not going to have a very good brand reputation. On the flip side, if all you're worried about is your brand looking pretty, some people often think, oh, we want to advertise just like Apple or just like Nike.
Right.
And I'm like, if you're a small brand, you can't do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
But you do need to find the balance of what's something that is still brand friendly, while being really powerful in direct response marketing. What will catch attention? How can we really, stand out from the crowd and not just throw a logo up on a screen and say, buy our stuff, right? And I've even had some funny conversations internally when I was at an agency with joking ads that we could make for this one particular client who had a very strict legal team. And it ended up being just that. Do you maybe possibly have a problem that we maybe possibly could solve with no guarantees? That kind of a thing. You've got to have some leniency from the legal team. That would be another one that I mentioned, whether it's brand saying you can't say that, but also the legal team. Yes, the legal teams are important, but occasionally having, whoever's the head of that legal team come talk with your creative director and say, where can we find a middle ground? Where are we okay
Sure.
to, say this in a certain way where there's still attention being grabbed or curiosity without saying anything that's going to get us in any kind of legal trouble? Because most legal teams, their job is to make sure there is zero risk, right?
Yeah,
but
that's
to make marketing claims a lot of the time, it's not a black and white thing. You have to, if you think of weight loss products or that kind of thing, you can't promise certain things, but you can say this is going to help you, right? So there's certain ways you have to phrase things. And if you can connect with the person over your legal team, or like connect those two, the creative director and whoever is over compliance, it's really important to be able to find a middle ground where the creative team feels like they can actually be creative in making some of these claims versus just repeating the same 5 compliance approved words over and over again.
Love it. I think that's great. No, this is awesome insight. Let's pivot a little bit, because one of the things that you sort of touch on in your conversations and content is creative diversity. And when you say creative diversity, what do you mean by that? Break that down.
It's all the buzzword right now in direct response.
Yeah, and break it down.
Paid marketing. So creative diversity, I think, when Andromeda was first released, it scared everybody to death, right? Everything's dying, nothing's working. Basically, the old way of I come up with one kind of body for, here's our messaging and it works. And then I'm going to test 15 different hooks on that thing. And once it works, I'm just going to keep recycling, 30, 40, 50 different hooks on that thing. Yeah, that way, especially when Andromeda came out, that flipped it on its head. Creative diversity is now you're going from, can I come up with a few different hooks, which, don't get me wrong, you still want to test different hooks, to can I test different audiences? When that's really, I would say, is where to kind of start. I like to break it down into like 4-ish formats. And this is outside, maybe format's the wrong word. This is outside of like, are you doing images and are you doing videos? Or are you testing carousels? Like, those are like the overarching formats. More than that, I like to break it down into maybe 3 different other categories. One would be like your style. What is the style of the ad? Is it a green screen ad? Is it a podcast style ad? Like the street interviews or a comment response, a listicle, here are 3 solutions for this, a whiteboard style, unboxing, there's all these different styles you can use. That in and of itself plays into creative diversity, but it's not the only part of creative diversity, right? But the visual diversity is absolutely going to play a big role. So if all of your ads, if you pull up ad library, like take a step back from your brand, pull up ad library, pretend like you've never seen your brand before, and you look at it and you go, yeah, most of these look the same. Like then Meta probably thinks
it's a great test. Right. It's a great litmus test.
And so that's one part of it, is the style. The next part I would say is, as I mentioned, like who are you talking to?
Sure.
One big part of Andromeda coming out is you can get a lot more micro with your personas than you would before. What the new, like the saying is, who are you talking to, or who's your target audience? If your answer is everyone, then the answer is really nobody, right?
100%.
So going to like your micro persona, rather than like, oh, it's females aged 35 to 55. Rather, let's think, how about recently divorced single mom? She's probably going through something very different than a married, no kids, that kind of thing. So like that,
definitely.
Where's like, get a little bit more niche in your persona. And then also, and this is, I think, one thing that brands, I think it's too easy. I don't know if that's right. Like, put that right on your creative. Recently divorced single mom, ? Like on your headline. Like it that kind of stuff gives Andromeda the signals that it needs to know exactly who to give the ad to, who to serve the ad to. And so being really specific
within the reason to do that, right? Like if you're doing weight loss, that's going to be a little bit more of a challenge.
For sure. It can be, it can definitely be a little bit more of a challenge.
Looking to lose weight, Meta's like, yeah, you're not going to be able to run that.
Right. Well, I definitely
there's some ways to do it. No.
And that's a whole nother topic of how do we get around, because I have spent a lot of time in the fitness space, and how do we say things that are okay to say without,
Right.
breaking Meta's rules and all that.
Sure.
Sure. But yeah, I would say, breaking down into micro personas, the style we talked about already. And then the other part, a huge key part of this with your creative diversity is what stage of awareness are you speaking to? And do you
That's
have
great.
creatives speaking to all of those stages? It's a
Yep.
big funnel. You know what I mean? Like people
Yeah.
who have never heard of your product before, not a very high chance that they're going to buy it today. And that's okay. But
Yep.
you still got to have some ads running that will speak to those people. The problem
For
unaware,
sure.
then the problem aware, then the solution aware, the
Yep.
product aware, and the people who are just considering and like, I'm not sure if I should buy, this competitor or this competitor. They know they're going to buy the product. They're just not sure who to buy it from, right? Why is yours
Yep.
better? Like that's the stage of awareness is another huge part of creative diversity. So I would say those are kind of the main things that I would say is like the style, the persona, and then the stage of awareness. Blend those three things. I actually just created like this matrix that I use
Love it.
that you can go in, put in your product and type all these things in. And then it kind of gives you this idea of like, okay, here's where you should go with your next ad. And that's been really helpful because a lot of brands say creative diversity. And then they choose one of those. Oh, let's do a bunch of different styles. And like, that's a part of it. But like, what about the stages of awareness or the persona that you're talking to?
For sure.
I think there's a lot more than just one thing when people talk about creative diversity.
I love that because one of the tools that we've been developing is sort of an AI like ICP tool, right? And it's been great because we can literally just take the URL bestseller of their product and plug that in and just answer questions with them right on a call, right? And then it just spits out this in-depth breakdown of that ICP and will grade it based on their product and provides like transformation grids like before, and like problem, what they worry about, and kind of give that transformational journey language that then can get translated into an ad, and you can almost do it in real time with the client, which is fun.
That's awesome. That's great.
Yeah, so it's cool. So just layering that again with like different styles on top of it, to take it to the next level. So literally you can just sort of stack your way into like an outcome that they can literally just be like approving right on a call, because it takes 3 minutes to run or less to go through with the right tool. So it's
and
gonna be cool.
I think one of the things, and going back to like some of the things that a lot of brands get wrong, and one of the things that's very difficult for a lot of brands, and like I've been in the place where I'm like, this is really hard, I don't know how to figure this out, is tracking all of that. So like, yes, you want to make sure that you have a naming convention so that every ad that runs, but then tracking, okay, if I have a list of 30 different styles of ads, how do I track which one that I've tested? But then a lot of brands go, well, I tested that once, it didn't work, so I'm going to give up on that. Like, okay, you tested one podcast ad. Cool.
Right.
But like, who was that podcast ad speaking to, and what stage of awareness were they in? Like, I've had multiple brands that I've gone to and said, hey, I think we should try this. And they said, oh, we tried that last year and it didn't work. Like, well, what did you try?
Exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. Show me the ad, because
we spent $50 on this ad and it didn't work.
Yeah. So and there's a whole nother rabbit hole with like, Meta spent $50. Are you happy with that? Or you think it's fully tested? Sure, we can go down that route later if you want to. But yeah, it's I think don't just give up on on something because you tested it once. Because there are so many different variables of a style or a persona that you need to combine. Like one of the brands I work with, well, multiple brands I work with, have probably heard me say, put it in a blender, right? You take a winning element from like 5 different ads that have worked for you and put them in a blender, and let's try them in a few different formats. And then maybe after you've thoroughly tested, every single one of them had the same variable of being a green screen ad, and none of them worked. Okay, maybe we can rule out green screen ads at that point, right?
Sure.
That kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, it comes down to just having enough data to actually make just you have enough statistically relevant information about that particular thing, right? Like that's essentially kind of what you're aiming to do. A lot of times though, I think that brands just don't have the patience, right? To like it's a performance based. If you're not driving performance, then like it's out the window. I mean, I've had this conversation with clients full well knowing that their product is hyper seasonal in what they do, right? And I straight up tell them, I'm like, hey, this month's data not going to look that great compared to normal because there are not enough impressions searching for your product. And I was, when I tell them often, especially this brand, I was like, demand generation is an expensive game to be in. You know, because but when people are actively hunting, obviously you just got to be in the right spot at the right time. And, you know, it's like, oh, all my metrics look so beautiful. But when you have to actually generate demand, people that aren't actually looking actively for that product or service at the moment, that becomes a much more expensive game. And so you have to have the metrics and the, you know, unit economics to support that, or you're going to be looking at your data going, oh, what's broken? I'm like, oh, it's the off season. So how do we think about more top of funnel? How do we think about more branding? How do we think about building that email list so that when you get into your busier season, when you start hitting towards that peak, you actually have a bigger base to build off of? Let's think about that strategy.
Yeah. One of the smartest things I've ever seen a brand do, and I was working for them at the time, is we very much discovered, hey, like this is a seasonal offer, and that's okay. You're going to make a lot of money during, you know, January to March or whatever it was. You're going to make a lot of money during that time. But like, when's your worst time? And you know, let's just say July to October. Okay, that was a very worst time. And the brand said, okay, well, let's make a product for July to October, you know, which is a hard thing to do. It's hard. I'm not saying every brand can just come up with a new product for the time, but you know, if you're a you know, a owner that can outsource a new product that, you know, still fits within your brand, still fits within your niche, that is also seasonal for a season that is your current off season, you're suddenly going to have 2 on seasons.
Yeah, 100%. I literally gave that advice to a client, not the same client, but a similar one that was super seasonal. I was like, let's go. Like, you need a different product for this season. And they're like, yeah, that's a great idea. And they're like, how do I do that? And I was like, well, that's going to be your job. I mean, I'll give you some ideas, but I mean, like, you're going to have to build that piece of it out.
Right.
I can't quite do that piece. That's a little out of scope, me building out an entire new product line for you.
Sure.
But yeah, I love it because it's absolutely true. It's like, if you know you're going to be down, you have a couple of options, right? You either batten down the hatches and you get like super just tight during that period, or you go top of funnel, or you get something else to sell your customer. And I would pick number 3, but you know, different people have different approaches and how they would go and do it.
Sure.
All right, let's talk UGC. That is a ever increasing. I feel like I feel like it's like hit its peak. Everyone knows about UGC, and then it goes through like these waves of it, right? And so I think it's obviously a fantastic creative to run and test. But like, what do you think is what do you see as a role in brand strategy as a whole, and how you've sort of played out with your clients?
Yeah, this is a great question. So UGC, I mean, was a buzzword for a while, and then everyone said UGC is dead. I don't know how many times I've heard that. And then
it's like
the
email.
next day,
same with email marketing. Email marketing is dead. Oh wait, it's still the most profitable channel that you would ever see.
Dead, right? but no. So UGC, I mean, it's kind of now become this all-encompassing phrase for any kind of video ad that isn't professionally produced. But it's, or that has people in it. But really, I mean, I think, and most of the brands I work with, I go back and I say, hey, let's get some actual UGC. And what I mean by that is give out some free product. Find your customers who have already bought from you, and reach out to them, especially the ones, go back and see who's bought from you multiple times. Because if they bought from you multiple times, they're happy with your product and they're going to give you a great review. Maybe they already have. You know, if you go in and you check, you know, your Google reviews or your Trustpilot or whatever review site, and then go back and find that name, match it to your customer database, and reach out. You probably have their contact information, whether it's an email or a phone number, and actually reach out to those people, offer them another free product, and say, hey, let's get on a Zoom call and get some actual user generated content. Start with a Zoom call that's just, back and forth, ask them a bunch of questions, and say, what did you like about our product? Of course, make it open-ended. Let them share their review as an actual person. And then just say, hey, we're going to use this for marketing purposes. Is that okay with you? Make sure you get the paperwork. And then in return, give them a free product. It's amazing how many people are willing to do that for a free product, especially if they like your product. So that is like one brand one type of UGC that I would say is really important, is get the actual user to do it, then test that. And then if that performs, if their face on an ad is resonating with your customers, don't stop there. Go back to them and say, hey, can I actually have you film some videos of you using the product? And rather than it being an interview, instead have them do some selfie videos, or have them set up send them a cheap tripod that you bought online. They're so cheap these days, and say, hey, we're sending this to you for free. We just want you to film, answer these questions, tell us about your experience. And then get some B-roll of them using the product. And then you
build
have
an AI avatar. Build an AI avatar from them. Just steal it. No, that's
there you go.
Do not do that. Do not do that. Just being clear. That was a joke. But it's like, but to your point, like, just build on it. I love it. I think it's super smart.
Yeah. Some of the best performing ads I've ever seen for some of the brands that I've worked with were that exact process, where you start with a customer interview, you find out, this, they test it. This is resonating. People like this person talking. They like their experience. And then you go back and you film. Like, you could go as far as even flying that person out to your headquarters and doing a full-on shoot, right? If it's working and it's making you money, it's probably worth the investment. So that, really tapping into your customer database and having real UGC is a big part of it. That said, shifting, I'm not saying it's not important to also have the paid UGC, use all the outsourcing platforms, the Billos and Scipios and all the outsourcing platforms to go find people that will talk about your product for you, because there are people, and a big part of what I've been doing throughout my career is I've always considered myself a creator too. Not just a creative director. Is like, I make lots of videos with my face in them. I've had people tell me, I don't know where I've seen you, but I've seen you a lot. I'm like, yep, I'm in a lot of ads, because like, that's a great way to get exactly what you want to be said out and said. Just make sure that you're being compliant about it. There's so many make sure that the disclaimer's on there, paid actor, results may vary, whatever disclaimer has to be on there. You don't want to lie to your customers, but it's totally okay to share or reenact a customer experience, as long as you're being honest about it, that it's a paid actor. So I think that also plays a big role. Get actual UGC, but then also get paid. You can call it UGC. I don't know, actor generated content, whatever you want to call it.
That's a whole new class. That's your next big play. You need to build the actor generated content platform.
But then I think the other big part of it that a lot of brands, again, have this untapped potential is, and it's starting to catch a little traction, I think, but I've been preaching this for years, is get your employees to start making content. Even if, get your accountant to film a video of himself, get your people who aren't, and every agency that I've worked at, and they could probably attest to, I got there, they hired me as their new creative director, and I started asking random people in the company to film videos because I thought they fit the persona. Like, get your employees. It's going to cost you zero extra money to film stuff for the clients that you work with, or for your product. What are they're calling it? EGC, employee generated content. I don't know, whatever the term is, but get that free content that's sitting there waiting for you. You may have some gold that, your Jan in accounting is making for you. Right. And so I think
job, Jan.
Right. I think that there's a lot of potential there that a lot of companies just don't think about. And
that's solid.
Could have a lot of value there.
How should brands think about the balance between that polished storytelling and that authentic UGC that you just talked about? Like, what's the balance that they should strike, you feel like?
I think the data is going to dictate that. I think you got to test them both, and see what resonates, right? I think one of the most valuable, in the past year or two, one of the ads that has performed the best for almost everybody that is willing to do it is the founder ad. You've probably heard of the founder ad if you're in the world,
Oh,
right?
for
Or in
sure.
the DTC
Yeah,
world, is
sure.
actually hearing the story of the founder. Some
I make that
founders,
argument with every client, and I
yeah,
get so much pushback. I don't want to do video. I'm like, do you hate money?
right. I've gotten this too. Every founder that I've asked, you get that at the beginning, and then you kind
Yep.
of show them, look at all these other founder ads that are performing really
Yep.
well, and some you can convince to try it, but the founder ad, I mean, it works. People love to hear the story, and because they connect. People, as much as Andromeda is going to change and algorithms are going to change, people are still going to be people, right? And they're still going to have emotions, and they're still going to want to connect with other people, and to hear the story of this founder, that the reason that he solved this problem and came up with this product, like, oh yeah, I really get that. If nothing else, like, I'm willing to support them by buying some of their products. But then on top of that, most of the time, that's not the reason they buy. Most of the time they go, I had that same problem. Wait a second. He fixed it. So
Yeah,
that's a really great, I guess, untapped potential that a lot of brands are missing as well.
100%. I agree with you. I think that's amazing advice. So you've also, based on our conversation, sort of ran UGC at scale for your clients, for the brands you work with. What does a repeatable sort of UGC engine look like? Like, what do you need? Like, what components do you need to actually kind of do that at scale?
Yeah. I think the biggest part of it is, to start, is you need someone to own it. Because if you don't have someone to own it, it's going to be either whoever's the biggest advocate on the creative team for that type of thing, just asking over and over, like, hey, can we hire another person to, do UGC for us? And then there's going to be no system, and then it's just going to die off. I've been in that place. So the first step is either assign somebody on your team that has capacity to own it, and don't think of it as a little small side project, or hire somebody to do it. And then from there, you start building out your system. And there are lots of great tools out there that can help you to scale this. Like, you don't have to do it from scratch, even though you can, don't get me wrong. But there are some really great UGC at scale platforms out there. If you do want to do it in-house, I mean, as simple as get a spreadsheet and start reaching out to people and offering, I would say, establish what you're willing to pay. Don't just go hunt for influencers. Don't get me wrong, they have their place as well. But like, there are a lot of amazing creators out there that have zero social media following, or very small social media following. I've been doing this my entire career, and my personal social medias are private, and I don't have a big following. Like, that's okay. I've also built a very large social media following on a public one before, but people wouldn't know it was my face because it's a different niche, right?
Yeah.
So
I see that thing hanging on the wall behind you. I see that YouTube.
Yeah. My I make all the videos, but my wife's the face of it. So like, you'd never think you meet me, like, oh, you have 1 million followers across all social. Yes, we do, but you wouldn't recognize my face.
You don't have people that meet you and be like, man, I know you from all that cool video editing you do on that channel. That's amazing.
Right. No, mostly it's like, hey, you're that debt relief guy, right?
Oh yeah.
No,
can you help me with my credit?
Right. But yeah, I think that for brands, just start reaching out to people and offer what you're, establish what you're willing to offer. A lot of people will be happy to make you a video for $100 or less. At which, if you're in the creator world, you're like, don't say that, Adam, that's cheap. Seasoned creators who really know what they're doing are probably going to charge you more money than that. And they have a place there too. I'm not saying don't hire seasoned creators as well, but like, I've reached out to my sister or my uncle and just been like, hey, would you be willing to make a video for $100? And start there and just start testing things. And if things start to perform, then double down on that person. Start creating a roster and start tracking. Did this person work or did they not? And don't just go off of one. Again, don't test the person just one time. What was the messaging? What was the, the stage of awareness? But you're going to be able to look at the data and see, testing, is this working for us, and what people are performing the best, and then keep going back to them. And then I would say even start setting up retainers with the creators that are working the best for you. Some of the best paid social teams that I've seen recently, and I actually am a creator for one of them because they just keep coming back and say, keep making us ads. Your ads are working. Some of the best that I've seen is most of their social or their paid ads video are not from an internal team. They're literally just hiring lots of different creators. Like that's their whole strategy to be like, this is our product. Will you come up with an ad for it? And they just trust their creators to bring their unique perspective.
That's smart.
Which is kind of cool. And so they bring their unique perspective, and you know they're having a lot of success that way.
I think it was one of. No, I love that. I think it's one of the successes that TikTok had, right? With its whole sort of get into like TikTok shops, and what it was doing was just how easy it made like creator outreach and paying them through their affiliate. You know, it's like they simplified that whole process, and it sort of sped up, I think, their adoption in that e-com and TikTok shops.
Yeah, absolutely. And like I said, you can build this in-house. There are also lots of tools out there that are already like, they just make it simple. You put in your brand. They even have, I worked for one for a while that they even have like an assigned person that will help you find the creators that you want using their tools. And it'll, and like all you have to do is initial brief, and then you sit back and just let videos roll in, right? And you have all this content to work with.
Yeah, it's super cool. One underappreciated value, I think, of UGC is how it is the feedback loop that it provides in product development, messaging, community building. Any examples of that from your career where you're like, oh man, this UGC conversation led to XYZ and it was a huge breakthrough?
Yeah, absolutely. I worked for a brand. I was their creative director. I don't know how long ago, but it was, I was doing this same thing that I just described to you, where I said, hey, let's reach out to some of our customers that have purchased from us before multiple times. And I will do the interview. Like, let me just record it and I will ask them a bunch of questions. And we did end up using that content in a lot of ads, and some of them performed pretty well. But I think even more than that is some of them brought up like, oh, this, you know, the product, the size of the product, could that be changed at all? Or the packaging, when I open it, it's really like, it's kind of hard to get this thing out, or this button. I always end up accidentally hitting this button on the product. And I just sent the whole unedited interview to like the board of advisors for the company. And they ended up watching it and being like, this is more valuable feedback than we've gotten in years on this product.
Amazing. Love it.
Because we didn't know that it was a problem, that when you opened up the package, you were accidentally hitting this certain button or whatever the problem was. And they ended up making adjustments to the product to fix that.
I love that. That's awesome. Yeah, I find that to be an absolutely underutilized aspect of just talking to your customers and doing the UGC model that you laid out. So that's super awesome. All right, I'm going to transition. We're going to do our rapid fires. So this is, I'm going to ask you questions. You can just riff off the top of your head. You ready to roll?
All right, I'm ready.
All right. Most underrated creative metric.
Ooh.
I didn't say they'd be easy questions. They are
this
rapid
is a hard
fire,
question.
I know this is a hard one.
I would say hold rate. How long are you keeping that attention?
Love that. Love that. Biggest creative myth in advertising or paid media?
I kind of went over this before, but we tested that and it didn't work.
Love it.
Testing one thing 2, 3, 4 different ways, and you can determine it didn't work. There's so many
different audiences, audiences even. Yeah, no, love that. That's 100%. You nailed it. One hiring mistake founders make when building a creative team.
Ooh. I would say not listening to their creative director when asking what to hire for.
Love it. Nice.
They just think, oh, we're building a creative team the way I know how to do it. And the creative director may be like, no, I need a very specific editor to do a very specific thing. And they just say, we're just going to hire, a general, copywriter or editor or whatever, listening to the creative director. Like I need something specific to get this engine running.
Yeah. No, I love that. What's one UGC mistake that you see brands make again and again?
Only going off of one perspective on UGC. And when I say that, a lot of the brands that hire out, especially in paid UGC, you think of the perspective of, am I talking as if I'm a customer that you just solved my problem, or am I talking as if I'm a salesperson saying, here are 3 ways you can solve your problem, right? A lot of brands only, I got a thumbs up, sorry. A lot of brands only do one of those. They'll say, we only want to talk about, here are 3 ways we can solve your problem, when really they need the perspective on the opposite side of, I had this problem and this is how the product solved it.
Yeah, it's the transformation journey. You need to have the transformation journey conversation for sure. I love that. If you had to rebuild a creative department from scratch with about a $50K a month in spend, what's the first hire?
Ooh. For me, because of like knowing my skill set, I would probably say, I'm torn between 2, but I'm going to try anyway. I would probably just say an editor.
Yep.
I don't mind the editing process, but I'm actually in the process of potentially hiring an editor right now, actually. That's why I say that. That said, I would also say an in-house creator, because that is another lever that a lot of brands don't pull as soon as they should, because you can get if you get someone who knows what they're doing, you can get so much content so much faster than you would hiring everything out to different creators.
For sure. I love that. Awesome. So I got one more question. You can take a little bit more time with this. This isn't as rapid fire, but if you zoom out 5 years, what will separate brands that win creatively from brands that plateau?
I mean, I feel like my answer is a little vanilla, but I was going to say diversity.
That's true.
So many brands just get stuck in this one thing works for us, and we tested a bunch of other things and they didn't work. But kind of. But this one worked, so we're going to keep doing this over and over and over again. You've got to be able to take. So maybe I'll make it a little less vanilla. The ones that are willing to take big swings,
love that.
Because what happens is that everybody starts to follow a specific formula because it starts to work. For a while it was hook, problem, solution, call to action. Don't get me wrong, these are great formulas to follow. But if you take a step back, like if you have that understanding and then take a step back, you might see, there's a much bigger swing we could be taking here that nobody's doing. Too many brands are just copying everybody else, and then it becomes saturated and everybody looks the same. Take a step back and do something that no one else is doing, but is still based on, the sales psychology principles and things that, work, the overarching things, but make it look so different than anything everybody else is doing. Those brands, the ones that are willing to take those risks, are probably going to be the ones that stand out.
I love it. Well, this has been an amazing interview. I appreciate your time, Adam. How can people get connected with you?
LinkedIn is probably the easiest way, Adam Frogley. Or if you want to shoot me an email, happy to connect and work with you. I'm taking on more clients. It's adam@frogleycreative.com. And I'm doing everything from creating myself. I can make ads to consulting. I'm training teams, working with teams and helping teams improve their creative diversity, creative velocity, all that kind of stuff. LinkedIn, and then adam@frogleycreative.com.
I love it. So I'm just going to recap our conversation. This is my sort of like thinking around it. So creative isn't content. It's infrastructure, it's systems, it's different perspectives, building the right team, and putting all that together. And then when teams are structured well, and you have that diversity of creative flowing through it, and it's fueled by real customer voices in UGC, it can become a competitive moat. And it's not just another campaign. It literally is something that sets your brand apart. And I think that's my biggest takeaway.
Yeah. Awesome. Love it.
That's good stuff. Awesome, Adam. Well, thanks again so much for joining Beyond the Cart. And we look forward to having you back again in the future, man. It was just really a great conversation.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.